Hi there. Welcome to the Health Analytic Insights Podcast. This podcast is all about creating a community of like-minded individuals who are passionate about the field of health informatics. I hope to share information and advice in topics such as health analytics, digital health, biomedical engineering, and data visualization in healthcare. And in exchange, I would love to hear from you, dear listener, about your experience and interest in this field. You can drop me a line at HealthAnalyticInsights@gmail.com, and this email, along with any references discussed during this podcast, will be listed in the show notes below. If this resonates with you, don't forget to follow and subscribe to this podcast, as I'll be releasing new episodes bi-weekly. Before we jump into the episode, I want to let you know that I've written a step-by-step guide to help you through the process of securing your first role in health informatics by providing you with concrete examples of what roles to search for, common skills requested by employers, example interview questions, and much more. If this is of interest to you, you can check out the show notes of the episode where I have a link to the ebook below. Now, let's get back into the episode. In this episode of the Health Analytic Insights Podcast, I'm continuing my talk about readmission rate. In the last episode, I gave a bit of introduction about what are readmission rates and how they are calculated. This is a common health analytic metric. So this episode is part of a series I'm doing deep diving into common health analytic metrics within the health informatics field. There are many different types of readmission rates that are tracked within the healthcare system, such as readmission rates for those who are rehospitalized due to mental illness, or patients readmitted within a 30-day window of having a myocardial infarction, congestive heart failure, pneumonia, and more. When you start to search more about readmission rates, you'll see that an often widely accepted standard is to view these rates over a 30-day period. Although you might see some cases where you're looking at readmission rates over a 90-day period or even a 7-day window. But this standard of 30-day window is a good balance between some of the socioeconomic factors or social determinants of health that might affect a patient's readmission rate that might not be directly linked to hospital care, such as limited access to social supports or living in an area where there's a food desert, versus what directly the hospital can control in terms of providing care. So I love listening to all types of podcasts, and one of the podcasts that I'm subscribed to is Canada Land. This is a podcast that talks all about Canadian politics. So if you're interested, I would highly suggest tuning into this podcast. They talk about a wide range of political issues within Canada. And I recently listened to an episode on food banks titled The Food Bank Industrial Complex. There's a fascinating expose on the history of food banks in Canada, how they came to be, and for better or for worse, how they are now the answer to food insecurity within Canada. One of the links associated with this episode showed that adults living in food insecure households are more likely to delay, reduce, or skip prescription medication. And in some studies, it is shown that lower medication adherence is a factor in driving readmission rates back to hospital. So therefore, there are many factors that might not be in the hospital's direct realm of care that can affect readmission rates. So finding a balance between considering a 30-day, 7-day, 90-day period is important for adhering to metrics where the hospital can truly make a difference versus what could be done within the community to improve care. On this podcast, I had the opportunity to talk to an oncologist, and the episode title was A Short Primer on Why Cancer Still Sucks. We were doing an interview on a book that he's written by the same title, so I definitely suggest checking it out. It's a deep dive into looking at the Canadian and the U.S. healthcare system when it comes to cancer treatment, looking at things like the waiting period and many other interesting factors. So in this interview, I asked him if having metrics really does make a difference when it comes to impacting clinical practice. And what I gathered from his answer was metrics for the sake of metrics are not helpful. But when they are developed with clinicians in the room to provide feedback on what metrics can drive practice, then this is when change really occurs. So given that there's so many external factors that can lead to readmission rates, there's been a lot of interesting work and research that has been carried out to forecast or predict patients who might be at risk for future readmissions, and then connect them with a community nurse. This might be for follow-up, to help improve medication adherence, and to also allow the patient to feel supported. So there are several standard scores out there which might help to predict readmission. One is the LACE score, which stands for length of stay, acuity of admission, comorbidity, and emergency department use in the last 6 months. And this score can be used to predict unplanned readmissions. But with the emerging field of artificial intelligence and machine learning being integrated into the healthcare sector, there has been some research on developing machine learning algorithms to predict which patients might generally be more at risk for a potential readmission. And the benefit to developing a machine learning algorithm is that it can be more tailored and specific to your specific hospital system, where you might generally serve a clientele who is older, or a clientele who tends to be on several different types of medications. And you can take that knowledge and integrate that into your machine learning algorithm rather than using a general score. And some papers, which I'll link to in the show notes, have shown that some of the algorithms developed have outperformed the standard LACE score used. So this has just been a quick overview of some of the different types of readmission rates, potentially why we look at a standard 30-day window over other windows, and what are some other factors that can affect readmission rates that might be outside of the hospital's control, and the potential of integrating machine learning algorithms to better predict patients who might be at risk for readmission. So the purpose of this series of doing a health analytic metric deep dive is that at the end of the series, I'll be creating a hospital key performance indicator dashboard using Power BI, which will include all the metrics which I've mentioned during this series. I'm doing this because I've heard from many of you that you're looking to create a project with a clinical focus that you can link to in your resume when job searching. And understanding the metrics that will be on this dashboard is the first step to building it. So in the next episode, we'll be talking about hospital wait times. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you for listening to the Health Analytic Insights Podcast. I'd love to hear from you about topics I should cover in future episodes. Please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Have a wonderful day.